Item 2, I have signed the minutes of the two meetings, both the ordinary minutes and the confidential minutes. So I'll go on to item 3. Any declarations of interest in regard to items on the agenda today? I'll take that as a no. Okay, thank you. So we'll go on to the first meeting on the 16th of December, and we'll take it for matters arising. As I said, they have already been adopted. So page 1, I'll just call out if you have anything to say. Page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5.
Yeah, great.
Page 5. Who's that? Sorry, did somebody say, is there something on page 5? Oh, sorry, that's all right, Deirdre, sorry. Page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 25's only a signing page. That's the minutes taken for the 16th of December. I'll go on now to the minutes of the meeting on the 17th of December for matters arising. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's the second set of minutes complete. Thank you very much. We'll go on now to consider, that's item 6 on the agenda, to consider application to be determined by the Planning Committee, and that's application 1, LA 10 bar 2019 bar 1364. The installation of a 250 kV containerized combined heat and power unit. I'll hand over to Darren now. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, members. So paper application 1, LA 10 2019 1364. It's a full application for the containerized combined heat and power unit. The application is by the council, and the location then is at the recycling centre at 30 Drumee Road in Enniskillen. The recommendation then is to approve planning permission for the reasons listed within the report and subject to 5 conditions. So I'll just take you through the details, members. So on screen is just an aerial photograph. I'm sure members know the site. The location of the plant then is within the red circle. There's an existing compound there already with equipment in it, and this will be sited in beside it. So on the left, you can see the aerial photograph just looking down at the existing sort of compound. And on the right then is the block plan showing the location identified by the red rectangle. Just in more detail then, so you can see the red rectangles where the container will go. It's in beside the existing equipment, which you can see on the screen, the compressor house and various other pieces of equipment. A cross section then are details showing the elevations. The containerized plant then is on the left hand side. You can see it, there's 6 meters long. There's equipment on the roof as well, including the flue and the exhaust and things like that. But overall, it sits in with the existing plant and machinery very well. So for the reasons listed within the report and subject to conditions, the recommendation then is to approve planning permission.
Thank you very much. Do members have any questions for Darren? I have one, but I'll wait to hear other questions. Any questions, members? One, and I've mentioned it to Deirdre in the sidelines. Oh, Earl, sorry, yes, hold on, Earl.
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks, Darren, for the report. It's not really a question. Are we in a position to move to decision as yet?
If you just give me one moment before, yes, you can propose if you want to move to a decision. There's no problem at all. I'll call for a seconder, but I'll just make a comment before I get a seconder. So go ahead, Earl.
Chairman, thank you. I'm happy enough to propose the recommendation for approval, subject to the conditions listed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks very much, Earl. Councillor Thompson. I've just one question. I'll call now on Councillor Robinson just in a minute. One question for Darren. I put it to Deirdre. Can I ask why it's a retrospective application from us as the council? Does anybody know?
I don't have an answer to that, Councillor, I'll be honest. There is no difficulty with it being retrospective. You can apply for planning permission retrospectively so long as it's described properly in the proposal and clear to everybody what's going on. It is a 2019 application and it has taken some time to get everything lined up in terms of the information that's needed to accompany the application, because the type of development that it is does require a number of reports and things. With consultees also as part of the whole process. So additional information was required and was submitted and has now been resolved to the satisfaction of all consultees. So to answer your question, I don't know the answer why it's retrospective, but I can understand why it has taken a bit of time to come to a conclusion.
That's okay. My comment, I suppose, will go back to Kim. I suppose as a planning authority, we should be trying to show an example. So if something like this can't not happen again in the future, please, if you could feed it back to the relevant officers. They should actually get the application in along with associated information on a timely basis. So,
I suppose, Chair, I was sort of being a little bit more forgiving in that in some cases, things like these, a lot of people assume they fall under permitted development, and I was given them the benefit of the doubt that they may have originally considered it to be development permitted under the general development permitted order.
I note your leniency. I, as chair, maybe I'm not quite so lenient, so I just want to send the message back to the relevant officers that they should do it properly. Thanks very much. Councillor Robinson, Paul.
I second that, Chair.
Great job, thank you. Any further proposals, members? If not, are we all in agreement? I take that as agreement. Thank you very much indeed. Darren?
Okay, members, so the recommendation then was to approve planning permission. Members have granted planning permission subject to the 5 conditions.
Thank you very much. Earl, could you take your hand down, please, and we'll move on. We'll go on now to item 7, and that's to consider 2 called in files from the delegated list. Application number 1 is LA10 bar 2020 bar 0743, and that's a conversion of a dwelling to 2 self-contained flats. So, Darren.
Okay, so paper B then, application 1, LA10 2020 0743. It's a full application for the conversion of a dwelling to 2 self-contained flats by Mr. Thomas Armstrong, and the location then is 38 Ashfield Gardens in Fintona. The recommendation then is to refuse planning permission for the reasons listed within the report, and which is subject to 1 reason. So, members, on the screen then is the details. So the site itself then is located in Ashfield Gardens. It's identified with a red rectangle on the screen. And you can see then the location of the other houses and the other development in the locality. Just to give members an idea, I'm sure you know where Ashfield Gardens is, but this is the main street of Fintona. And then you can see the development on the site then located to the rear. There are pedestrian links through to the main street with vehicle access up through the mews out onto the road. Looking in detail then, the plan on the left shows the location in the red rectangle again, and on the right then is a more detailed version looking in. You can see number 38 is annotated by the yellow star. The front of the property looks in the direction of the purple arrow, onto the public footpath, with the rear area then the amenity space at the back out onto the car park. Just using the agent's drawings, then you can see number 38 with the access out onto the front onto the footpath, and then the rear access out into the existing car parking area at the rear. You'll note then also the other houses in the area, so we have number 40 down to 37 in this block, and then the other blocks, terraces nearby. So now in the photograph then, again looking down, the yellow star identifies the location of the house, and the purple arrow then shows the frontage out on the footpath, and you can see the car parking area at the rear of the property. In terms of the existing plans then, on the left you have the ground floor plan. So if we come in off the front through the porch entrance, you're into the hall, and then you have the downstairs, living room, dining room, and kitchen. There is a rear entry then through the porch, and there's also a small outhouse at the rear. But on the right hand side then, the first floor plan shows you come up the stairs and 4 bedrooms can be seen on the screen. So that's the front elevation of the property, and it comes out onto the front into the footpath. And the rear elevation then, you can see the back of the property then with a small existing extension at the site, and then you can see the car parking area at the rear. So the proposed plans then, on the ground floor, the front entrance will remain, and the rear entrance will be retained to allow access to the ground floor unit from the front and the rear. It's a 1-bedroom unit, and you can see the bedroom there on the left hand side with the living room, kitchen and hall and bathroom. Upstairs then, you can see the external steps at the top of the screen. Those are the new steps that we put in place to allow a new doorway to be made in on the first floor. It will allow entrance into the kitchen, a new kitchen, and then you can see over on the right the 2 bedrooms are proposed then, bedroom 1 and bedroom 2, with a bathroom and a living room. So the only access to the first floor is through those external steps. In terms of the elevations, the front of the building will not change, so the left hand slide shows the elevation which will be retained, and then on the right hand side you can see the rear elevation then will have external steps put in place, and those will allow access up to the first floor, where there'll be a doorway into the kitchen. So the location of the property means that the rear of the property is easily seen from the public car parking area, so that public steps and the changes at the rear will be seen, and therefore will have an impact upon the character and the appearance of the property. And that's just a view looking towards the car parking area with the building identified with the yellow star. In terms of the wider context, so this is a view looking over towards the site. There's a 1.8 meter high fence along the edge of the footpath there, so this is slightly raised just to allow members to see the rear of all those properties. And if we zoom in, you can see then how you will get a clear view of this from the parking area and the park and the amenity area. So in terms of the policy and the reasons for refusal, the proposals contrary to the policies listed, as it would have an adverse effect on the local character, environmental quality of the area, would adversely impact on the residential amenity of nearby third parties. The new steps fail to enhance and maintain or enhance the form, character and features of the design and setting of the building. The original property is less than 150 square meters, and the internal floor space of only units is less than the minimum space standards set out in Annex A.
Right, thank you very much, Darren. Everybody hear me? Yep. We have speaking rights, both from the applicant and agent, and indeed by Councillor Stephen McCann. So I'd like to say, I think Eugene McCann and Thomas Armstrong are in the training room. Can I make sure that they're ready to go? Eugene, can you hear me?
I can indeed, Robert.
That's okay. Look, I'll just explain the procedure. I know you've done it before, but it's just for your applicant client, Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong, you have 10 minutes between Eugene and yourself to present a case, essentially. No new information should be given that isn't already in the hands of the planning officers. I will time you. If you want to take 10 minutes, that's fair enough. If you don't, you can stop. You may then be asked some questions by the members, or you may not, and we go on then, and we'll get an update from Councillor Stephen McCann. So I'm trying to get my stopwatch. Are you good to go, Eugene and
Yes.
Thomas?
Okay, yes.
Okay, well, if once I say start, if you could introduce yourselves and then go straight into your presentation, please. So time's going now. Away you go.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. My name is Eugene McCann. I'm the agent for the application. Mr Armstrong is a private landlord with over 20 properties currently let around Northern Ireland, and therefore is acutely aware of what properties are lettable, what the current trends in housing rent sector are, and what problem properties are. Now, number 38 Eiffel Gardens Findon is a 4-bedroom mid-terrace property and is one of these problem properties, as it is too large a property to rent to a small family and is currently rented to a single person. The police regrettably have been frequent visitors to the property to break up parties that are being held there, and changing this property to 2 flats would stop this problem. We live in changing times, and the housing sector has to move with the times as families are getting smaller. There have been no objections to this application from private individuals, neighbours or the active residents group, and I think this says a lot about the application being largely acceptable to the local community and immediate residents. The proposal, as stated, is for the conversion of a mid-terrace 2-storey dwelling house to provide 2 self-contained dwelling units, one on the ground floor and one on the first floor. Similar sized dwelling units exist in Meadowbrook, Fintona, and in Mullockmore and Strathroy, Omagh. And as stated in the planning report, the ground floor 1-bedroom flat complies with the space standards, but the first floor 2-bedroom flat may just fall short of the space requirements. So the applicant has suggested that with minor adjustments, this can be reconfigured to a 1-bedroom dwelling, thus complying with the space standards. And I would like to point out, Chairman, that there are lots of smaller 2-bedroom flats up and down the main streets of Omagh, Fintona and surrounding towns, which are successfully let and are very satisfactory regarding the space requirements. And I'll draw your attention back to the proposed first floor plan, which indicates 2 bedrooms, a kitchen and a living room. Now, nothing up on the first floor has changed. We're not changing a single screw. We're just knocking a door out to the back to access the kitchen. So the living room was a former bedroom, a large bedroom. The kitchen was a former bedroom, a large bedroom. And we have 2 bedrooms, one that will accommodate a single bed and the other will accommodate a double bed. There's bathroom and there's plenty of internal circulation space. And I think it's just important for the members to note that is currently a model for 2-bedroom apartments or flats up and down the main streets of every town in this local area. All current housing executive flats are accessed via solid concrete steps, which I would agree with the council are very obtrusive and look very cluttered from a public perspective. The proposal in this application is to use open riser stairs with open metal treads and open metal balustrade so as to be as unobtrusive as possible. Also, the galvanising of the steel will provide a durable finish, helping the staircase to blend in and have a light and airy appearance. I have found no evidence to suggest that providing an access stairway to the rear of this property, or indeed to any existing flats throughout the area, will encourage residents to congregate on these stairs. And I would contend, Mr Chairman, that this is only hearsay. Mr Chairman, in conclusion, I would ask the committee members to consider the changing trends in family sizes and modern living lifestyles. The private rent sector is becoming the norm in the country as the public sector is diminished. Surely the likes of Mr Armstrong, as a private landlord for some 25 years, know the market and know what will work and what won't work. Also, you have to the constraints placed on the properties with the government bedroom tax that Councillor McCann will elaborate on. And that's my statement concluded.
That's okay, Eugene. Does Mr. Armstrong want to add anything, or is he happy just to forgo that?
Yes, Mr. Armstrong would like to say a few words, Chairman.
That's okay.
Have we time?
You have 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes.
Oh,
I'll give you. Yep.
No more. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and community member. I'm not a good reader, so I have been a landlord in the private rental sector for almost 30 years and have property throughout Northern Ireland. I am registered landlord with the Northern Ireland Housing Executive Regulation Scheme and HMO registered. I also am registered with the Tenancy Deposit Scheme. I am a long-standing member of the Ashfield Gardens Residents Group, also of whom are supported of this proposal. I am also a member of the Fintona Forum. The property authority feel Ashfield Gardens too big because the demand locally and indeed throughout the council area of us is for smaller accommodation. I built a new 2-bedroom house in Ashfield which has the two same tenants, and that's since it was built in 2009. Since then I have been contacted by at least 8 different people looking for similar size accommodation in Ashfield, but it is simply not available currently. So the demand is there. Being able to convert 38 Ashfield Gardens to 2-bedroom accommodation would help meet this demand. The ground floor accommodation would also meet the need for an ageing population, of which there is growing numbers. Sorry, I'm not a good reader. I don't even know what that word is. My wife wrote this. Of households in Ashfield are single parent families, which a 2-bedroom accommodation would better suit. The facilities provided by the council for the children and young people in the rear of this property would lend itself well to young families. It is my hope that planning approval would be granted so that the needs of the people of Ashfield can better be met. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. You finished within the time. I'll go over now and see if any committee members want to put questions either to yourself or to Eugene. Members, if you want to ask questions, could you indicate, and I'll take you in rotation. Councillor O'Reilly, Thomas, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. Am I correct in taking it then that if the 2-bedroom is moved to a 1-bedroom flat, that overcomes the floor space issue?
I think I'll ask at some stage. Darren will come back on that, but I think that was the view being put forward by Eugene, Tom.
Yeah, I just want some clarification on it. Thanks,
Eugene, yeah, do you want to just quickly comment on that? I know Darren will come back on that.
Was that me, Robert? Yes.
Yeah, that's you. If you could just come back on that.
Sorry. Well, if it's to overcome the issue of the floor space requirement, yes, we can convert it back to 1-bedroom. But as I did say, look at the first floor layout. It's a layout that's used throughout the council area, and there are 2 very adequate bedrooms. There's 1 double bedroom and there's 1 single bedroom, and that is a 3-person house. That's a 3-person flat. So I would prefer not to have to change it to a 1-bedroom, but if we have to, we can, and that will satisfy the floor space requirements.
Chair,
Thanks for it. Chair, yeah, come back, Tom. Yeah, go on.
There seems to be, we really need that Pacific issue clarified there. It seems to be a crucial issue from a planning point of view. And can I just, when we are sort of trying to get this, is this a mandatory floor space? Is it a recommended floor space? And is this as a 2-bedroom, which Eugene seems to be saying they are falling within the boundary of housing executive and the parameters they put on their floor space?
Tom, I'll get Darren to reply to that when I come round to the officers to reply, if you don't mind. It's just,
Lovely.
have you anything further to direct towards Eugene or Mr. Armstrong?
No.
No,
Yes,
that's okay. That's all right. Alan, Councillor Rainey? Councillor Rainey? Alan, you've indicated. Can you hear me?
I'm coming.
Yep. Have you a question?
Eugene or Mr. Armstrong, certainly you have made the case that there's a demand for it and that there have been no objections. I'm only simply asking a question about facilitating a young family by means of steps. And then my concern will be, how does the steps operate in the winter time and the frost? Has that been taken into consideration? That's my 2 questions.
Thanks very much, Alan. Eugene, could you take those, please?
Certainly, Robert. Well, Councillor Rainey, I'll just take the first point. The need for these apartments, as Tommy has said, there's a chronic need. Fintona has a very, very good private rental market, and there is a chronic need. He has been contacted 8 times over the last 2 months for single and 2-bedroom apartments. They don't exist. They're not there. He cannot let a 4-bedroom house. He just cannot let them. And to have them lying vacant, well, it's better to have them let to a single person, but you let them to a single person, and now with COVID, these people then move in and they organise these parties and stuff. So families are becoming smaller, so therefore you have to cut your cloth and have 1 and 2-bedroom apartments. As for the stairs, the stairs are deliberately made out of open metal, and that gives them a non-slip finish. So there's no problem with, in the winter time, the stairs being slippy. Their open checker plate leaves them non-slip. And what better for young families going up and down stairs, where you have the ground floor flat for older people. So older people can use the ground floor, whereas perfectly disabled friendly first floor for the younger families.
Thanks very much, Eugene. Okay, no problem. Councillor Deehan, Josephine? Yeah, thank you, Alan. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have a question for Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong indicated, Chair, that he was a member of the Ashfield Residents Association. Can I ask if this planning application was discussed with any of the resident association members, in particular to ascertain if there were any objections, given that one of the main reasons for the recommendation to refuse is the fact that the design of this application really is very different from the surrounding dwellings, that there would be an issue with the upstairs apartment overlooking. Could I ask Mr. McCann, would there be any landscaping that would reduce the impact of the rear stairwell and make it appear less obtrusive in the environment? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Josephine. Eugene, could you take those, please?
Yes, well, I'll let Mr. Armstrong answer the question about whether he has been in touch with the Residents Committee. With regard to the stairs, Councillor Dean, yes, we could and we can actually carry out a little bit of soft landscaping to the rear, and it will probably mitigate the appearance of the stairs. But I'll go back to what I said before. The stairs are very unobtrusive in their design. They are open, they're airy, they let light penetrate. And with regard to the overlooking, surely bedrooms overlook. There are numerous other apartments around Fintona and Omagh, and they overlook. and they were on the first and they were even on the second floors. So I don't think we're doing anything that hasn't already been done and already been approved by the council. Tommy?
What was I going to say there? My mind went blank on what used this crack. We haven't, with COVID, we haven't met as long time, like, you know, actually, from actually come in, but just I'm both aware that everybody in the area has got letters and notified about it, and like, I have a good relationship with them, and nobody has come to me asking me this, that, or the one, so that's really all I can say, like, you know.
That's fine, Mr. Armstrong, no problem at all. Okay, Josephine? Right.
Thank you, Chair.
No problem. No further questions, then I'll move on now to the presentation by Councillor Stephen McCann. Stephen, you're there?
I am indeed, Robert. Can you hear me okay? Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Look, you know the procedure. You got 5 minutes. You don't have to introduce yourself if we don't know you by now. Then we've probably been stuck in the mud for about 3 or 4 or 5 years. So on you go.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. And can I just start by thanking you and the committee for your forbearance last month in deferring these two applications, this one and the following one, until today to allow Mr. McCann the opportunity to present to us. In relation to this application, a lot's been said already, so I'm not going to go over it all again. I'm happy to lend my support to Mr. Armstrong, who is, as has been said, an established landlord with many properties dotted throughout the country. Mr. Armstrong has identified this particular property in its current form as a property which is proven more and more difficult to let. Demand just isn't there for a property of this particular size in this particular location, and we've heard the agent outline some of the difficulties this is creating. Demand is there, however, for smaller, less expensive flats. As a councillor, I have been lobbied, and I'm sure many of you all have been as well, by individuals who are seeking 2 and 1 bedroom properties, primarily 1 bedroom properties, I would say. Welfare reform and its associated bedroom tax has meant that larger rental properties simply are no longer affordable, and the demand is outstripping the supply. There have been no objections lodged by local residents to this application, and I believe this is a very important point if this application was to be approved. I'm sure that neighbours would have received notifications of this proposal, and there's been no representations made. The agent has made the case there very well that similar size developments are dotted throughout our local settlements, and he has mentioned specific locations both in Fenton and Omagh where similar and indeed smaller properties do exist. So I don't want to go over, Chair, what's been said already. If I can conclude that by saying that the rental property market is evolving, we all appreciate that and know that. We have an increased demand for this type of development, and I'm fully supportive of Tommy Armstrong in this case. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Succinct as usual. You've kept it within 2 minutes. Well done. I'll move on now to Darren. Your comments, and then I'll ask if members have any further questions. Bearing in mind, Darren, sorry, Councillor O'Reilly Thomas had a couple of questions that he wanted answered.
So, members, there's a lot of issues raised there. I'll try and go through them in sort of in the order they were raised, but I think the important one to start off with here is the proposal. That was really the discussion about the amended scheme. What's before you is shown on the drawings. It's a full application. If the agent wants to amend that, then they need to send in amended plans for those to be considered by officers. We would also need to re-neighbour notify the neighbours as well to let them see the changes that would be proposed. So what's before you has to be considered here today, unless the agent says he wants to change that and withdraw it off the agenda and put in a new proposal. So having regards to that, what you have is, I'll just go back to the floor plans, members, because I think it's very important here. So this is the proposed plan. So the ground floor has the entrance at the back and the front for the 1 bedroom unit. And the first floor then has the 2 bedrooms on the upstairs, only accessed by the external steps. There's a suggestion made that the elderly people would use the ground one and then possibly a family on the first floor. Now, to me, that's really as poor planning as we could possibly get. A family on the first floor with no access to amenity areas, no access to amenity space with children will obviously congregate on those external steps and will then also go down the steps to the amenity area at the back, which is right outside the bedroom windows and the kitchen windows of the elderly people or the downstairs flat. So in terms of planning and orderly and consistent development of land, it's what we would consider to be wholly unacceptable. Landscaping then for the stairs. The metal stairs are commonly seen throughout the area, and they're generally on industrial and commercial premises or public buildings. In terms of their appearance, there's something that the planning office and over the years have consistently opposed in residential areas especially. Even though they are designed with these open steps and trying to minimize the appearance of them, there's no getting away from the visual impact they will have. Landscaping will not overcome that. The stairs go right up to the first floor, and therefore there'll be very little can be done to screen that and soften the impact of it. Overlooking is a critical issue here. The stairs, as I say, children and people on that first floor will congregate. It's a kitchen, so naturally that's where people will congregate, a habitable room, and the door will be opened and people will stand out there, and I find it difficult to say that they won't. In terms of similar other developments that have been approved and are in the area, the council has, or the planning department has no, we haven't had sight of where those are or what those are. There's new information raised here today and I can't comment on them. They probably are there, they've probably been approved, but they will all be considered on their merits and will be found to be acceptable, unlike this one. And then finally, members, in terms of the planning policy, which is the critical thing before you today, the agent and the applicant may be saying they can rent this out as a 2-unit property, but the committee must bear in mind that the planning policy is a critical thing before you today, and the policy LC2 is there in the public interest and lists a series of tests which must be met, and there's quite a few of those not met. The original property is not over 150 square meters gross internal floor space, and the units, again, one of them is well below the required size. You then also have the additional planning policy tests of the impact on the amenity, the local character, and the neighbours, which are also critical in terms of the merits of the application. So overall, as it stands before you today, members, the applications would still be wholly unacceptable.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Deirdre is going to come
Sorry,
in.
members, just to add, there's been a lot said about sort of the difficulty with sort of renting this property and the issues around antisocial behaviour. There's no evidence that this property has been lying vacant for any length of time. As a matter of fact, I understand it has been rented to a single person for a while now. And I don't think the size of the property in any way influences whether there's going to be a party or not. And there's nothing to stop some of the parties happening in the single bedroom or even the 2-bedroom flat that may be provided. So I think those sort of issues need to be discounted and very little weight given to them. I also just sort of question, I know in Mr. Armstrong's presentation he made reference to being a member of the Residents Committee, and the implication there was that this development had the support of the committee, and I'm not aware that that is the case. Certainly we have no evidence, and from what Mr. Armstrong responded in a question from Councillor Deehan, it would appear that actually there's been no meetings since COVID with that Residents Association, and therefore I don't think it has necessarily got the endorsement of the Residents Association. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, have you any questions for Darren? Tom, yes, I'll take you first. Councillor Wiley, Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. Just to go back to that floor space issue, Chair, I don't think Darren really has done anything to enlighten me there. Well below is a fairly arbitrary explanation there. Could we get a little bit more detail on that? The 150 seems to work downstairs. What is it, the 2 bedrooms that's is making the problem on the first floor? And what does well below, how much below is it exactly below the 150 meters? And what regulation is that 150 meters?
Right. I think, Tom, if you go back, I know Darren's going to refer you. If you refer you to the report, page 5 of the report, refusal, reason for refusal 1D, I think Darren, or sorry, the author of the report has referenced in there, but I'm sure Darren will bring you to that now and sort of talk you through it. But if you look at page 5, refusal 1D, just refer to that. And then Darren?
Yeah, Councillor, I was going to say, just the report does go into that on page 5. So The original property should be 150 square meters gross internal floor space. In this case, it's measured by officers at about 111. So, as I say, well short of 150. In terms of the size of the unit, again, on page 5, it sets that out. The upper two bed flat should be 60 to 80 square meters, and it's at 53.5. So it should be 60 to 80, it's 53.5. Again, there's a reference that could be used for family. So, you know, you're looking at the higher end of that figure. There's possibly 4 adults could be in that, or 2 adults, 2 children. So you would be looking at the higher end of that figure, but the numbers are set out there on page 5. Hopefully that clarifies it for you. In terms of the other unit, as I say, remember, if they were going to change it to a 1-bed flat, that would change those numbers and would change it, but that's not before you today. If that's what the applicant wants to do, he needs to submit amended plans and amended drawings for that. We have to determine what's before you today.
So, Chair, so just that I'm clear on this, is the point that I was trying to get to, was that the 35 to 55 square meters for the 1-bedroom could be replicated upstairs by the decrease to the 1-bedroom, and that would then comply with the internal floor.
I'll get Darren to come back to you on that. It's a hypothetical, but as Darren said, we have an application here that we have to determine. It's a possibility if that was withdrawn and resubmitted as 2 1-beds, would that reason for refusal be overcome? I think that's what you're getting at, Darren.
Yes, members. If, as I say, it's really heading off on a tangent. What's before you must be determined. I wouldn't like to get into a hypothetical discussion about something that might be or could be submitted. Planning officers will obviously look at it and reconsider it, and that may change that issue. But as I say, I don't want to sit here today and give a comment on that without seeing what is proposed and what they are doing. So I don't think really, members, that we should go down that route of discussing that and focus on what is before you and the proposal before you and the content of the report.
Okay,
and this is building regulation figures.
No. Sorry, Councillor, just to be clear, the guidance, the space standards guidance comes from planning policy. It's in an annex at the back of the planning policy, and at the bottom of the table, it says that it's an extract from the Department of Social Development's Housing Association Guide 2009 Design Standards. So the numbers that are being quoted are from the DSD Housing Association Guide, and that's where they come from.
And Chair, my final question on just so that we're clear on this, are those numbers the same numbers that the building control go on?
Hands up, Councillor. I don't know. We've never had that issue raised before. Building control and planning, I know, are separate. I don't know if there are space standards for building control. I don't know it. As I say, planning is completely separate from them.
Yep, lovely. Cheers, Chair. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, Thomas. Next up, Councillor Garrity. Mary.
Thanks very much, Chair, and apologies, my video is not...
No, that's okay. It's been explained. We'll try and get that sorted out after the meeting.
Lovely. Thanks for that, Chair. Well, I suppose wholly unacceptable and the worst example of planning. I'm often critical to officers for not being maybe more direct and guidance for us as councillors, but I think Darren has laid his case out today, and I appreciate his directness for us as decision makers on these issues. However, I'm looking at the situation, and Darren did mention that the applicant, I would loathe if the applicant was out any more money or any more stress. He clearly provides a very useful service to the public in his role as a tenant or letting out these places for people who badly need them. My question would be, and you can advise me, Chair, whether this is appropriate or not, but it looks to me like the best course of action would be to be withdrawn in its current format and resubmitted. And I don't know for sure. I think Mr. McCann did allude to if we have to do that, we can. I'd rather not. But I think in its current position, there's a lot of things that don't sit well, maybe within the officers or the members. So I wonder, would, rather than going around the house for a shortcut, would that be an option for Mr. Armstrong and Mr. McCann?
I think, speaking from the chair and taking on board what Darren has said, I think there are critical policy issues that would need to be overcome that don't seem to be able to be overcome with the current application. Now, if the application was withdrawn and resubmitted, I think there is a conversation to be had, and probably within reason a better outcome may be obtained. But that is purely in the remit of the applicant, Mr. Armstrong, through his agent. If they, in the light of the discussion so far, say that if they want to try and get this over the line, that it may be best to withdraw and reapply, having a conversation obviously with the officers, then that is down to them. I take on board your suggestion, but I think I would put that directly to Eugene and Mr. Armstrong. You're obviously listening, Eugene and Mr. Armstrong, to the discussion so far and the problems that are contained within the application, and the answers already provided by Darren on behalf of the officer team. Do you need to discuss this, or are you adamant that you still want to go on?
I don't think so, Chairman, but I think it's an awful travesty that to change a line on a drawing, we have to resubmit, and that's £868 for everybody concerned. That's an awful thing to ask the applicant to do.
Hold on, just Eugene. Hold on, Eugene. Darren wants to come back on that, and then Councillor Campbell indicating.
Chairman.
Yep.
I need to finish before Darren butts in.
No, that's okay. That's all right. Go ahead.
This is all about money in this day and age. We're in a COVID era. There's not very much money about, and you're asking the applicant here to withdraw the application and resubmit, paying the full planning fee again. When could this not be handled with a simple amendment to the first floor plan?
I'll hand over. Yeah, I'll hand this over to Darren now if you're happy, Eugene. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, members. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to speak before Eugene, and I might have helped his blood pressure there. The application can't be amended. Under this application, it would require just amended plans to come in, and officers would obviously look at that. I would ask, though, maybe if members would give officers some guidance in terms of the other issues about the steps at the rear, the overlooking from those and the visual impact of those, and whether members would consider that those should be reviewed and maybe the internal layout changed so that the access to the upstairs flat is through the front door and the back door that exists, and maybe stairs or some other means of accessing the first floor internally is proposed, rather than maintaining this steps and the metal frame at the back due to the visual impact and obviously the impact on the neighbours. So officers would welcome guidance from members on that.
Right. I've 3 more councillors indicating, so I'm going to go back to the councillors. Councillor Campbell, Glenn.
Yes, Chairman. Well, I suppose my first comment is Darren has outlined the guidance in relation to floor space, and my understanding that should be interpreted as guidance, and we should look at each application on its own merit. And I have to say that there's something in my mind very useful about not requiring a lot of work to that first floor, as the agent has put forward the fact that there's very little work required. It does look like a space that works. So I suppose I'm just querying, is the guidance a hard, fast rule? It sounds, I think I'm answering my own question here, it is guidance. That's the first thing. And the other thing is, in terms of the visual impact of the steps, I'm just not so sure. I think it's a great improvement on what has been put in place by the Housing Executive over many years, the very robust cement steps that seem to, and maybe they don't, but they seem to give room for people to hide on the way up. It seems like a much more obtrusive and negative structure than this one that's proposed. So, I would be content with the steps, but I would be, like Councillor Rooney, more concerned about safety than the appearance in this instance. And I think the agent has said that there would be non-slip. Now, I've been on these type of steps before inside, different premises, I suppose, and you can get a very good non-slip that would work. So just those comments really for now, Chairman. But maybe if Darren could comment on that rule around the guidance, should it not be just interpreted as that? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Glenn. Darren?
Yes, Commissioner. So the figures, the space standards that are included in the policy in an annex are guidance, and they're there for members to look at. There would have to be some demonstrable reason and justification to reduce it down and reduce the standards from what would be proposed, especially these days in the current COVID pandemic, when space is at a critical. And it's an important consideration for people. This is a 2-bedroom flat upstairs, so you would be asking why you'd be reducing it down to below the standards and what the public interest is in doing so.
Sorry, can I just add, Chair, that obviously guidance is drawn up not to make life difficult for people, but to ensure that sort of the quality of development that has been provided is at a good quality. And certainly in terms of, the standards, it's to ensure sort of the quality of living that's provided, and that, we don't have cases where properties are subdivided into separate apartments that are so small that really living conditions are very poor. And as Darren points out, given the COVID space and given the lockdown, space is important, and it's important that adequate space is provided within different apartments and flats to ensure sort of a good quality of living space.
Thanks very much. I'll move on now to Councillor Deehan. Josephine?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Mr. McCann has indicated, Chair, that if essential, they would redesign this application to make the upper flat a 1-bedroom apartment. But in fact, looking at the drawings of the proposal, really, if you took away the wall between the 2 bedrooms, you would be left with a very big bedroom indeed, which really I don't think would be very functional. So if there was a resubmission of a proposal for a 1-bedroomed upstairs apartment, I think that it probably would require the plans to be reconfigured quite substantially. So my question really is, and it follows on from something that Darren said, if there was reconfiguration of the application to make this a 1-bedroomed upstairs apartment, would there be some facility for an internal stairway which would get round the problems of the external stairway, which detracts from the quality of the residential environment and the fact that it makes it out of character with its neighbours? So I just wondered if that would be a possibility that the applicant would consider. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. I'll ask Darren to comment, but I probably know what his comment is going to be. Go ahead, Darren.
Well, as I say, members, I'm happy to discuss amendments with the applicant and agent, and we can certainly look at whether the building can be reconfigured internally, so you don't need the external staircase. But again, that's something that we would need to do outside of today's meeting. And amended plans could come in under this application, and you wouldn't require additional fees or anything, so could do it.
Sorry, what did you say? Just to clarify what you said at the
end.
So
if the applicant wants to come in with amended plans, we could do it under this application, and we can review them all against the policy. It'll not require a fresh application.
Right. Okay. Did you hear that, Councillor O'Reilly? He did. Right. Okay.
Excuse me, Chairman. Eugene again. Mr. Armstrong would like to say something. Is that possible?
No, just not at the moment till we get our discussion out of the way. I'm sorry, Eugene. We'll just have to see where we go. Hold on. I have 3 more councillors. Councillor Feely.
Thank you, Robert. There's been a big lot of discussion about this. Funny, I was just coming in the exact same thing as Councillor Deehan came on there about the stairs. I wouldn't really have a problem with the size of the bedrooms upstairs at all. Tell you the truth, you know. And before I start, I didn't realise there was such demand on these smaller flats. I didn't realise that until the agent and Mr. Armstrong said that. I thought they didn't realise that. So when there is a kind of demand on it, but I would have a kind of a slight problem with that outside stairs as well. It's out of character. It doesn't really look normal in a row of houses of one with that outside stairs on it. And I don't think it would be that safe if they were saying it'd be a place for a family. It wouldn't be a great place to have kids up there just open the door and stay out on that stairs and they could it wouldn't be that safe. So I mean, just like Josephine, if we could have a stairs coming in from the inside, which would be better, I think. It's just more of a comment, but Josephine asked it there before me. That's why I was coming in about the stairs, you know. But I think it's unusual looking at that stairs at the back of them houses like that there. And even if a person had a young child in a buggy or that, you wouldn't, if you get the buggy up, you'd have to leave it downstairs, someone to be outside. And that it's just kind of unusual, but it's a tricky one now. I just say that now.
Thanks, Anthony. Councillor Campbell, you're back in again, so I'm going to let Councillor Coyle in before you, but I'll come back to you. Councillor Coyle, John?
Thanks, Chair. No, I concur with the other two speakers, Councillor Feely and Deehan. I would like to see a discussion with the council officers on integrating stairs within the building itself, and be very dangerous. So I think I would like that.
Yep. Look, I'm taking the feeling from the members so far and taking on board what the officers were saying in regard to the issues that are not being overcome surrounding policy, that there may be a decision here in regard to putting it forward as a deferral for further discussion between our officers. But if that can't resolve the thing, it'll have to go straight back to what has happened, and it'll have to go back to the delegated list then for the original decision. Possibly that's the way forward, members, because I think we're not denying that there seems to be a need in the area, but we can't completely set aside policy just to actually get around that issue. We have to work within the policy, but we are mindful of the need and the service being provided by the applicant in the area. So look, that's a possible way forward, but it's up to you, members. If you want to go down that route, please come to me. Otherwise, we'll have to go forward and have a proposal in regard to determining the application. Councillor Campbell, I'll let you back in again now.
Well, Chairman, I suppose there has been a good bit of debate on this, and I can understand why. Although I have to say that in the round, you know, this is a proposed development that caters not just for the need for ground floor small accommodation, but also for a combination of 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom. And I think that the stairs, which I think we agree can be safe and can be used safely. I think that the stairs do allow for the 2 bedroom property upstairs. I think it's good to be able to offer a 2 bedroom property and a 1 bedroom property. I think the guidance, where it falls below the guidance, I think that this is a 4 bedroom property. The space upstairs isn't being altered in any big way. It's unique, and you know, the room is there, I believe, for accommodation for 2 bedrooms upstairs, and I like the fact that there's a choice there. Will it attract? I think that the agent, and we don't know, we're not in the business of renting properties, but I certainly know there's demand for smaller properties. I do like the fact that there's the option there of a 2 bedroom. So for those grounds, and I think the visual amenity, I do believe, you know, that we are in changing times. Like I said earlier, I think that this can be made work visually. I don't think the impact will be as obtrusive maybe as other people feel. And I suppose on those grounds, I'd be prepared to propose an approval contrary to the officers in this instance, Chairman.
Right, you're proposing approval contrary to the recommendation. I'm going to bring Darren in quickly here.
Yes, Councillor, just in terms of the recommendation, the proposal, if there's a comment on the second reason for refusal, adverse impact upon the amenity of nearby third parties, and also the fact that the original property is less than 150 square meters floor space.
Yes, well, I mean, I suppose the guidance, it isn't meeting, but I think we have to look in a pragmatic way about what sort of development this is. I think we have seen cases in my mind where it wasn't acceptable, maybe in the past in other applications, but this, I think, is a proposal that works. I do believe there will be people who will need this property, and there is people who need it right now. And in terms of the floor space, I do think that we are in changing times. You know, that those guidelines, perhaps, well, they are guidelines for a start, but perhaps they don't take into account the pressures being brought on by things like bedroom tax, and also on the general economic conditions and smaller family size and everything else that's been mentioned already. So in the round, I think that floor space is acceptable. In terms of the residential amenity, we cannot assume that if people don't object that there's not an impact on their amenity, but people haven't objected in this case. Nor can we assume if people object that carries ultimate weight. You know, people can object or not object. We have to look at what adverse impact this will have on the amenity of third parties, and in my view, that will be that will be minimal. There may be indeed, as the agent has said, there may be an improved impact. We don't have a crystal ball in terms of tenants. We don't have control over that. But certainly, I think that this proposal merits approval. I hope that answers it. So I don't feel that the adverse impact is significant enough to refuse.
That's okay. Thank you, Glenn. I'll move on now.
Could I just,
McGuire?
Sorry, members. Obviously, the critical issue here is the policy consideration, and what the members said is noted, and members can consider that in a second. But just to be clear here, the 150 square meters for the size of the property relates to the original property. Has to be more than that to be suitable for conversion. That 150 square meters is not guidance. Okay, that's set in the planning policy within the grey text. It's the size of the units then that is the guidance, and that's where there's a flexibility as a guidance. But to be clear here, members, that it's the 150 is planning policy. Now, within that, what the member has said has commented on that, and the issues raised can be taken into account, and I don't think it causes any difficulties. The only difficulty I do foresee, though, is the precedent that will come about from this, and that will set for other properties within the council area. And I would caution members, just if they are making a recommendation here, that unless there's a reason why we are setting aside the policy that's clearly linked to this unique case, it will set a precedent for the wider council area.
Thank you, Darren. Councillor McGuire, Tommy.
Robert, thanks, Robert. Again, like other councillors, and I think maybe there's quite a few have voiced the opinion that the external stairwell doesn't sit well with myself, and the issue of the internal space for I think for us to set a precedent on that, I think would be wrong. Given that Darren has already explained, and the agent's aware now, that a deferral and a discussion between the planners and the applicant in relation to the possible internal staircase and the reconfiguration of the first floor, I'm quite happy to propose a deferral on those grounds, Chair.
Thanks very much, Tommy. Councillor Garrity, Mary.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I think Councillor Campbell's proposal was reckless for a number of reasons, all even more serious, that it could incur more costs and a new submission as the agent, Mr. McCann, has outlined, and that's what I was trying to avoid, and try to get some resolution to this. And I think the correct mode of action is one that suggested yourself, Chairman, proposed by Councillor Tommy Maguire, and therefore I would be happy to second it to see if there could be some middle ground reached with hope, and that the applicant would be out no more money, and maybe the need would be addressed in the long term. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it's a second proposal, but it's duly proposed and seconded. Councillor Campbell-Glenn's is purely a proposal. Glenn, do you want to come back in there before I move on here?
Well, Chairman, certainly don't accept at all that I'm behaving recklessly. I have to, like everybody else, interpret policy, but I can read the room if you like, and I understand that the mood may be in support of a deferral, and Councillor Garry's point might be that if a proposal goes forward and is voted against, well, then it's a new application. There's an opportunity here to defer and to amend, and in that case, I take Councillor Garry's point in that regard, but I'm certainly not being reckless. But I am happy to withdraw the application in support of the deferral at the stage.
That's okay. That's brilliant. Thanks very much indeed. Look, we've got your proposal withdrawn. We now have a proposal duly seconded to defer back to the officers for further discussion. I'm going to put that to the meeting now.
Sorry, Chair, before you put it, can I just clarify? I'm assuming that this is a deferral to allow discussion around moving the staircase internally, and also in terms of the floor space and reducing it to 1 bedroom on the upper floor. It's just to make sure we're clear on that, because obviously under the protocol, deferral should be an exception, and we only really defer if we think it can be resolved, and those are obviously the two big issues that members have raised. So just to clarify that is what members are asking for.
Are you happy enough, Councillor Maguire, Tommy, that that's the reason why you've deferred?
It was on the advice from Darren that I proposed it. So okay. as Darren outlined, those two issues.
Yep. Right, members, I've got a proposed proposal to be seconded.
Chairman Rainey and O'Reilly.
All right, Councillor Rainey. Alan.
Just happy to support Councillor Maguire's proposal, Chairman.
That's okay. Councillor O'Reilly, Thomas.
Chairman, I just want to clarify this. That the 150 square meters policy only allows, and this one is 111 square meters. So that is, an additional thing there that seems quite hard to overcome with any discussion.
I think that's part of the discussion, but Darren, do you want to comment finally on it before I put it to the floor?
Yeah, the 150 metres is planning policy, and it'll be for the agent to provide a justification why the planning application should go contrary to that 150 square metres, based on the information today about the need and the location for smaller units and various other things, the difficulty renting it out. If all of that information comes in, planning officer will obviously look at that and consider that all in the round.
That'll become material considerations then as to why it should go against policy. Are you happy enough, Thomas?
Sure, yep.
Great. Right, I've got a proposal. I put in the floor. Any dissent from that proposal? No, thank you very much indeed. So, a deferral for further discussions. I'm not going to time bound it. I'm going to leave it basically that it'll be the hands between the applicant agent and the officers. Okay? Thank you very much indeed. We'll move on now to the next application. That's application number 2, LA10/2020/0645, and it's for a 2-storey dwelling with detached domestic garage. Darren?
Okay, so application 2, LA10/2020/0645. It's an outline application by Mr. Thomas Donnelly for a 2-storey dwelling with a detached domestic garage. Adjacent to and east of 80 Ecclesville Road. The recommendation is to refuse planning permission for the reasons listed within the report and subject to the 5 reasons. So members, on the screen then you can see the site location plan with the site identified with the yellow star. You then have the red line in a rectangular shape around the yellow star, and then the access then will be down via the existing private laneway, and that's shown along the red line. The purple arrow then indicates the approach then in and off onto the public road. The aerial photograph then shows that. You can see the approximate position of the site with the yellow star, and then the access by the purple, the laneway shown with the purple arrow running off down to the public road. In terms of the other sites and other land, as you'll note from the report, members, it does raise that as an issue. So you can see that in the top right of the screen is additional land that's within the applicant's control, and that's in the position of the purple star. Now, if we just look at that, the purple star then shows the location of that land inside the settlement limit of Fintona, which is shown by the red line. The blue hatched area is the applicant's annotation on their drawing showing additional land that they would own and control. And then on the right hand side, you can see the aerial photograph showing the site and the settlement limit then of Fintona. So those lands then are inside the limits. And that's just a couple of photographs showing the location of those lands. As you can see, that's standing at the road looking towards the site. So in terms of the issues, it's a planning application under CTY 6, personal and domestic circumstances, and the issues related to that are set out within the report. One of the issues then in terms of reason for refusal is the access down to the public road. The red line around the site boundary only goes down the laneway and then stops and doesn't include the visibility displays, which are required to improve the access up to the safe standard. So you can see the black circle there. If you imagine you're standing at the bottom of the laneway looking left and right on the public road, that's the view looking left. So that hedge will have to be set back from the edge of the public road. And then on the right as well, there may be some hedging there and banking to be set back along the edge of the public road. So the application site doesn't include those lands within the current application, and therefore there's a significant road safety issue. In addition, members, there's a turbine to the south of the site, which has not been taken into account in terms of the impact that that may have upon the occupants of the house. There's also woodland on the site, and the council has no information in terms of the impact that there may be upon protected species that may exist within the woodland. So having regard to all of those issues, the application is currently CTY 6, and you can see the three reasons A, B and C. You then have reason 2, that is the lack of information really in terms of the impact of the wind turbine upon any occupants. Reason 3 is a road safety reason. Reason 4 again relates to the removal of the trees and the impact then potentially upon the habitat species that may exist within the site. And then reason 5 then is the CTY 1 reason, as there's no reason why this development is essential in the rural location and could not be located within the settlement.
Okay, with speaking rights here. Now that confidential information has been submitted by the agent on behalf of the applicant, and I'm just advising Eugene and Mr. Donnelly, if you actually are going to speak about that, we will have to go into committee. And there's also the issue, I think, that Councillor McCann is speaking in support of your application. If you wish him to remain in any part of the confidential business section, we would have to have the authorization from the applicant, Mr. Donnelly, to say that he's happy and content that Councillor McCann stay on for that part of the session if we do go in. So before you make any of your representation, are you going to, I'm just going to ask you, Eugene, before you actually start, are you going to refer to the confidential information that's been provided in support of this application in your remarks now?
Yes, we will be making reference to it,
right.
Chairman.
Well, in that case, I think we would need to just take the whole of this section moving forward in committee. So I'll need a proposer and seconder to go into committee, please.
Proposed, Chair, Councillor Campbell.
Councillor
Seconded, Glenn Campbell.
Okay, Councillor Campbell. So that's Councillor Garrity proposed, Councillor Campbell second. So if we could turn off the recording, please. And just to clarify, Eugene, could
Chair, would it be opportune to take a comfort break when we return to recording, please?
Yeah, that's okay.
5 minutes, if you could suggest
well,
that.
I think it's better.
Was considered in relation to application LA 10/2020 06450, and it was agreed to defer the application for receipt of further information.
Thank you very much indeed. Members, we'll go on to item 8 now, and that's to consider the schedule of planning decisions issued in December 2020, paper C. Any questions for Deirdre in that regard? If not, could I have a proposal to adopt? I see Earl, you're up there, Councillor
Propose the
Thompson.
note there, Chairman.
Propose. Yeah, okay. Councillor Coyle, John. Seconding?
Second, Chair.
Okay, all agreed?
Great.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 9, and that's to consider planning appeals update for December 2020, paper D. Any questions for Deirdre in regard to, there's only one notice there, and it was refused. Okay, could I have a proposer and seconder? Proposed, Josephine? Yep. And a seconder, please. Thomas, are you going to second? Yep, thank you. All agreed? Yep, great. Yep. Going to item 10, and that's to note update report on planning enforcement in December 2020, paper E. Any questions? No. Could I have a proposer? Propose Councillor Thompson. Earl, seconder, please. Councillor Maguire. Tommy, thank you. All agreed?
Great.
Great. Item 11, that's to consider a quarterly update on live planning caseload report, paper F. Any comments? I think you can see in the next paper as well the impact that COVID is having on the work by our officers, but even through that, they're still getting the work done, thank goodness. So could I have a proposer and seconder for that, please? Proposed Councillor Thompson, second Councillor Smith. Thank you. All agreed? Great, thank you. Item 12 is to consider report on planning performance, statistical report for the second quarter, paper G. Any comments? One comment I think I'd make, apart from COVID impacting on the lack of hitting performance targets, the approval rate, to be fair, is still sitting as the 3rd out of 11 councils at 98%. And that's just to show how agents are actually working with our planning officers to try and ensure that those applications come in, where possible, meet all the policy, and actually then go forward with the recommendation to approve, which is good for everybody. That's great. So if there's no questions, could I have a proposer and seconder, please? Proposed Councillor O'Reilly, seconded Councillor Donnelly. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, sorry, Josephine, you were just upstaged by Sean. And going to item 13, and that's to consider update report on applications deferred by the Planning Committee, paper H. Any comments? None. Could I have a proposer and seconder, please? Don't be shy. Councillor O'Reilly, followed by Councillor Feely. All agreed? Thank you. Item 14 is correspondence. I think there's 2 items of correspondence. One is the letter from the Chief Planner. I think that's already gone through committee. Any comments on that? Councillor Thompson?
No comments really, Chairman. Just to propose the note, the letter from the Chief Planner. Thank you.
I think the one comment I would have, and I've discussed it with our officers, in that it's a wee bit rich, the Chief Planner coming back with decisions in regard to battery storage units, and very much saying that it's down to you to make the decision rather than them issuing a policy decision. So never late as always, but we're glad that they at least jumped down somewhere along the line. But thanks very much for proposing. Councillor Robinson, are you seconding the noting?
Second.
Yep. Okay, all agreed? Great, thank you. Second piece of information, correspondence, is regarding poultry units and recent outbreak of avian flu. Any comments? No. Could I have a proposer to note then, please? Councillor Robinson.
Opposed?
Yep, okay. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Feely. Thank you very much indeed. Right, I'll go into item 15. Any urgent and relevant business? Now, nobody has notified me before the meeting of any topics they want to raise. I'm taking that as still the same situation. So we'll note that and move on. Now we have to deal with the matters arising from the confidential minutes of the meetings on the 16th and 17th of December. I need a proposer and seconder to go into committee, please, and we'll turn off the recording.
Chairman.
Proposed, Councillor Smith, and the slow here is not going to wear, I don't think. Have we got it up and running? We're on a countdown. There, we've got it. Well done. Kim, could you summarise?
Thank you, Chair. So during confidential business, members considered matters arising from the confidential minutes of the 16th of December and also of the 17th of December.
Thank you very much indeed. Members, that concludes our business for today. Thank you very much indeed for your inputs throughout the meeting. Whilst we mightn't have dealt with a lot of applications, I think the discussions that took place in regard to 2 or 3 of them were very useful, and hopefully the outcomes will come forward again. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and I will see you next month. Cheerio.